Red Sun over Canton by Hing Wong. Canton has been horribly wrecked the last few days since October 15th, when a Red Army of 40,000 terrorists red washed 35 wards and streets in the western suburb with the blood of aged and young who were too weak to endure the rage of a red sun, which pierced through them in the form of daggers and bayonets and kerosene oil, the power of which has left a monument of hundreds of blackened wall standing over debris. Once the glory of 1,600 homes and shed worth more than $25 million, but now the grave of 6,000 innocent men, women, and children who perished when Dr. Sun Yat-sen destroyed a good part of the city by fire when failing to overcome all the Canton merchants volunteers opposing tyranny and misrule. Since the last return of Dr. Sun Yat-sen to power in Canton in the spring of 1923, he has been importing to support his ambitions to become the president of China several hundred thousand politicians and mercenaries. To support them, exorbitant taxes have to be created, public lands and buildings sold, private property confiscated, and many men and women pressed into involuntary servitude. Of course, the Cantonese first petitioned, then protested by strikes and suspensions of trade, and finally resisted by force some of these maladministrations and unbearable taxes. But Dr. Sun Yat-sen, instead of listening to public protests and removing some of the grievance, looked upon all those differing with him in policy and political ideas as enemies and sought to remove them by enlarging his Red Army with advice and subsidy from the Soviet representatives in order that he might end all opposition from the people. The Canton Merchant Volunteers are legal organizations with military training for local self-defense against lawless elements. Naturally, was called upon by the people to check further outlawry. Dr. Sun Yat-sen and his Kuomintang political party, while themselves daily preaching democracy and party government, will not sanction having any other party but their own, and they have been suspicious of the people's movement for self-government and defense for some time. With the merchant volunteers in Canton applied to the Canton government for a permit to import arms last August, Dr. Sun and his party got excited, and they, instead of denying the application and thus preventing the arrival of any arms, first issued the permit and, upon the coming into port of the arms, seized them and disregarded the permit. The volunteers protested against the action, and the Kuomintang regime under Dr. Sun Yat-sen, which assured the owners of the arms that they would be giving back all arms upon their contributions of $500,000 toward Dr. Sun's war fund, and then divided the arms among Dr. Sun's favorite following. Upon further pressure from the volunteers, Dr. Sun agreed to hand back about 4,000 of the 10,000 pieces of arms and 110,000 of the 35 million rounds of ammunition. The volunteers were glad on October 10th, just 2 months after the arrival of the arms, to get what was given back, but an examination after the receipt of this small part of the big consignment, it was found that they were but substitute, discarded and damaged articles gathered from the mercenary units. The volunteer organization thus cheated again, protested. This angered Dr. Sun Yat-sen, and he on October 14 decreed the disarming of the volunteers and the occupying of their barracks. Upon the refusal of the latter to be disarmed, the massacre of Canton citizens followed. For the time being, the volunteers have been driven from their homes, and the red flag of the Thai Kuomintang party is now supreme in Canton. The destruction of Canton City and the massacre of Canton citizens by rats under Dr. Sun Yat-sen on October 15, as figures go, guards from various sources were responsible for deaths among aged persons, mostly women and children, numbering 4,300 to 6,400. Whole or part ruining by fire of 1,600 to 2,200 shops or offices, and damage to business and property amounting to no less than $25 million. Exact figures in all this will never be known, and the number of homes sacked, person more or less wounded by stray bullets, and burning buildings, of resisting looting, and women outrages rape, while large may not be such in giving some vernacular press reports. It appeared that only about 584 rats were shot, 200 seriously injured, and 700 slightly wounded, while some 600 merchant volunteers were of October 7 unaccounted for. Among this, some 50 were giving up as dead, 100 wounded, and 150 as having been perhaps taken prisoners by the many Red commanders. The numbers of street partially and really destroyed was 34 when last figured. The attacking Reds were directly by Wu Tenchen, Adjutant General Dr. Sun Yat-sen, who contrarily commanded the general shooting afraid at the emergence volunteer who defended the city at several strategic points, by Li Fuklung, who encouraged the massacre of the civilians and a general rape and lootings, and by Governor Liao Chonghai, the foremost Chinese Bolsheviks in South China, who led the 40 squad formed among the unemployed coolies to commit the incendiarism. For the several barbershops which have done so effective a service in the destruction of the most prosperous business section of Canton, including the Tantong, Tanglong, and the Samshanhong Street, the Wall Street section of Canton, the home of the capitalist interests, according to the red phraseology. Canton, October 20th, 1924.